My name's Nina Holloway. I'm 52, and until recently, married to a man named Mark Holloway, who has the emotional depth of a soggy paper towel and the loyalty of a tax auditor during a federal raid. We were married for 28 years. That's not a small sentence. That's longer than some murderers serve. And let me be clear, Mark didn't cheat with his body, not until later. He cheated with his silence, his indifference, and the way he could make me feel completely invisible while sitting 3 feet away on the couch. You ever ask someone what they're thinking, and they blink at you like you interrupted a crucial stock market analysis, only to tell you nothing? Mark said nothing for 28 years. I gave up a lot for that marriage, my grad school dreams, my job as a program director, and for a long time, even my sense of self. But I did it thinking we were building something. A home, a life, a legacy. Turns out I was the only one pouring into that foundation while Mark was drilling escape tunnels under it. By the time our kids were grown and out, our house, this sweet little craftsman outside Durham, North Carolina, was the last thing we really had together. Well, that and our shared ability to pretend everything was fine while slowly dying inside. So when we finally sat down in the living room to have the talk, we did it the way you'd expect 2 exhausted business partners to divide a failing restaurant. Calm, mature, utterly devoid of emotion. We should get divorced, I said. He nodded. I agree. We even shook on it. Like a real estate transaction. No yelling. No name-calling. Just a polite agreement to legally stop pretending we liked each other. We said we'd split everything. Sell the house. Divide the retirement. Go 50-50 on the lawyer. A divorce pact. A grown-up ending to a dead marriage. Only, like most men who mistake their mediocrity for martyrdom, Mark thought he was doing me a favor. 2 days later, he revised our agreement. Told me he wanted the house. I just think it makes sense for me to keep it, he said. You know, for the kids to come visit. Continuity. Now, I'm no stranger to North Carolina marital law. It's an equitable distribution state, not community property. That means assets are split fairly, not necessarily equally, but I had receipts. I knew what I contributed. And I also knew damn well those kids hadn't stayed more than 2 nights under our roof in 3 years. When I said no, he laughed. Not a funny laugh. Not even an incredulous one. Just smug. Like he already knew I'd cave. Like I was still the woman who swallowed disappointment for the sake of peace. I'm sure we can settle this like adults, he said, standing in the same living room I paid to renovate. Hardwood under his socked feet, kitchen backsplash I tiled with my own hands behind him. Let's not make this ugly. That was the moment I knew he was going to make it ugly. He just didn't think I'd hit back. He didn't know this time I wouldn't flinch. Let me tell you a little something about houses. They don't just hold your stuff. They hold your time, your breath, your arguments at midnight, and your laughter at dawn. And in that house, I buried versions of myself for decades. But when Mark decided he deserved it, he made it real clear he hadn't buried a damn thing. At first, I thought maybe he was grieving the end of the marriage in his own twisted way, clinging to the house like it was a symbol of something. But no, Mark didn't want the house out of sentimentality. He wanted it to win, to plant his damn flag in it like some budget conquistador and declare himself the victim who got everything but still walked away with dignity. I got the call from our mediator a week later. Mark had filed for exclusive occupancy, citing emotional distress. Said I was hostile and erratic. Now listen, if I'm erratic, it's because I spent 3 decades navigating his moods like a damn bomb disposal technician. And hostile? Honey, the only hostile thing I've done lately is start pouring his favorite bourbon down the sink. Not out of spite, just trying to help him wean off the delusion that he's still the good guy here. But he was laying the groundwork. I could see it. He started telling our adult children I was struggling to cope. Told our son that he was worried about me. Texted our daughter a cryptic, "Your mom isn't doing well. Maybe check on her." Check on me? Check on the woman who packed his lunch for 20 years and held him when his mother died and stayed after he forgot our anniversary 5 years in a row? Now I know what you're thinking. Just tell them the truth. But it doesn't work that way. Not when someone gets a head start on shaping the narrative. Mark was out there planting stories like a damn farmer, and I was still figuring out the soil was poisoned. And here's the part that really stung. They believed him. At least, at first. My son stopped answering my calls. When I showed up to our daughter's birthday brunch, she blinked at me like I was a ghost and said, "I thought you weren't coming." "Why wouldn't I come?" She gave a tight little smile. "Dad said you were. Taking time." Taking time? He was isolating me, one polite, weaponized word at a time. Church wasn't any better. I caught wind that Mark had opened up during prayer group about the challenges of being the steady one in a turbulent marriage. If I hadn't been raised to be polite in pews, I'd have flipped a hymnal. So now I was the unstable ex-wife, refusing to move out, clutching at a house I didn't really want, just being difficult out of spite. Except I did want it. Not because of spite. Because I earned it. Because I built it. Because it was mine just as much as his. And if Mark wanted war over a mortgage, then he'd better pray he liked losing. Because, baby, I was just getting started. I didn't realize how fast a man could rewrite history until I watched Mark do it with a damn smile and a church bulletin in his hand. It wasn't just the house anymore. He was coming for my character. Piece by piece. Quiet, surgical cuts made in rooms I wasn't even invited into. And the worst part? Nobody questioned him. He had the voice of reason, the face of regret. The poor, weary man trying to do right by a woman who was apparently falling apart. Let me tell you, it's a surreal thing to be cast as the villain in your own life story. One Sunday after service, a woman from the church, Karen with the Bible and the bangs, put her hand on my shoulder and said, "We're all praying for you, Nina. God's gonna walk you through the storm." I blinked. What storm? She gave me that look. That bless your heart, you poor crazy thing look. It's just so sad what happened with Mark. He said you've been struggling. But he's handling things with such grace. Grace? Mark can barely handle an oil change without swearing like a sailor, but suddenly he's the poster child for grace because he told people I was confused and hurting while I'm out here paying the bills? I laughed. Not politely. I walked straight out of that church and didn't look back. I was done playing the good wife, the grieving woman, the wounded bird. Because here's what Mark didn't know. While he was busy crafting his narrative, I was pulling receipts. Literal receipts. Bank statements. Emails. Texts from his not-so-secret burner phone. Yes, he had a burner phone, like a low-budget mob boss with a Wi-Fi plan. That boys' trip he took 3 years ago? Lake House. Romantic weekend. With a coworker who wore heels to HR meetings and once called me Martha to my face. He thought I didn't notice. He thought I wouldn't remember. He underestimated me. Like most men do when the woman next to them has been quiet for too long. He thought silence meant weakness. What it actually meant was documentation. And baby, I had it in spades. See, I'd spent decades cleaning up his messes, smoothing over his lies, and now? I was finally organizing them. Color-coded, categorized, and stapled with court-admissible clarity. Meanwhile, Mark was out there talking about me like I was a cracked vase someone left on a shelf too long. Fragile. Fading. Outdated. But cracked vases cut fingers. Especially when you try to pick them up like nothing happened. So I started planning. Not just how to keep the house, but how to make damn sure that if Mark wanted to turn this into a battle, I'd be the one holding the sword, the map, and the final chapter. Because no one smears me and walks away clean. And Mark? He was about to learn just how dirty things could get. The first time I looked at the file, I hesitated. It was an old, red accordion folder I'd stashed under the bed during one of Mark's budget talks. You know the kind, where he'd complain about the electric bill while driving a leased BMW and blaming me for buying name-brand peanut butter. Inside the folder was over a decade of paperwork, bank statements, investment documents with my name removed from the beneficiary section, his cryptic Venmo transactions labeled. And tucked neatly between a canceled check and a handwritten birthday card from our daughter was the real gem, an email chain. From her. The other woman. The blonde one with Pilates arms and a name like she owned a candle line at Whole Foods. Tracy. Spelled with an I. Of course it was. She had emailed Mark on his work account about a weekend in Asheville and called him her silver fox. First of all, ma'am. No. Second, you're using work email? You're cheating and stupid? But stupidity, as it turns out, was a gift. Because it gave me evidence. I printed it all. Stapled it. Highlighted her signature. I added it to the folder along with our joint tax returns, ones I filed. I signed. I understood, while Mark just scribbled where I told him to. Let me pause and say something about North Carolina divorce law, because I studied. In this state, adultery doesn't bar you from property division, but it does influence alimony. And if you can prove marital misconduct, financial infidelity, hidden accounts, even alienation of affection, you've got leverage. So I started building leverage. I called a lawyer. Not the sweet, uncontested divorce type we initially agreed on. I found one who wore sharp suits and smiled like she'd gut a man with a binder clip if given the chance. Her name was Cassandra Bell, and she was worth every damn penny. I walked into her office with the red folder and said, "He wants the house." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh!" I laid down the printouts like playing cards in a final poker hand. "He also wants to pretend I don't exist." She didn't smile. She grinned. "Let's make him wish you didn't." We started with subpoenas. Credit card companies. His job. Even old phone records. I handed over every password, every joint account, and even the number to his old buddy Tim, the one who always smelled like weed and secrets. And while Cassandra went to work building the legal case, I started cleaning up my own side of the street. I called my daughter. Not to argue. Not to plead. Just to ask if she'd like to come over for dinner. She hesitated. I told her I made pot roast, the one she loved when she was 12, the one Mark never ate unless someone else complimented it first. She said yes, because if I was going to win this war, I needed more than receipts. I needed my daughter to see the truth with her own eyes. And once she did, there'd be no unseeing it. Mark had started a fire, but I was about to burn the whole damn lie down. The night my daughter came for dinner, I wore the same apron I used to bake birthday cakes in, the one with the fading #OneMom print she gave me when she was 10. I wasn't trying to manipulate her. I just needed to remember who I was before Mark's silence made me doubt it. She walked in like someone arriving at a stranger's house. Light knock, hesitant smile, eyes scanning the walls like she didn't know where to land. "Hi, Mom." I smiled. "Hey, baby. Come in." Shoes off, just like always. She chuckled, barely. But it was there. A thread of warmth I hadn't felt in months. She sat at the kitchen island while I ladled out pot roast and mashed potatoes. I'd gone full nostalgia. Buttered rolls, green beans with bacon, peach cobbler on standby. Comfort food, because I needed her to feel home, not just be inside it. She picked at her plate at first, like she wasn't sure if eating was safe. Then she said it. "Dad said you were different." I looked at her, full on. "Different how?" She shrugged. "That you've been angry, lashing out. That you don't want to compromise." I took a breath. Slow, measured. The way you do before walking into a meeting where people already made up their minds. Sweetheart, I said. Let me tell you something about compromise. Compromise is when both people give something up. What your dad wants is surrender. That's not compromise. That's control. She stared at me for a long moment. Then finally, she nodded. I thought it sounded off, she said. He kept talking about the house like it was already his. I slid a small stack of papers across the table. Not everything. Just enough. A few printouts of emails. A screenshot of the transfer he made from our joint account to his business consultant, who doesn't seem to have a business license. The Venmo note that said, for last weekend. She stared. Her fork hovered in the air for a beat, then dropped. I didn't know. I didn't want you to. I wanted to protect you from this mess. Her face crumpled. Why didn't you say anything? Because when a man like your father starts talking first, he doesn't leave a lot of room for the truth. She reached across the counter and held my hand. The same fingers I held when she was 3 and afraid of the dark now curled around mine, anchoring me. I'm sorry I didn't ask you sooner, she whispered. I'm just glad you're here now. After dinner, she helped me wash dishes. We didn't talk much more, but it didn't matter. The silence wasn't heavy, it was healing. As she left, she hugged me tighter than she had in years. Don't let him take it, she said. I smiled. I won't. Because now? I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for truth, and she had finally come home to it. And as for Mark? His time in the spotlight was running out, and the curtains were about to fall. The first time I sat across from Cassandra Bell, I knew I'd found the exact kind of woman Mark couldn't stand, sharp, composed, and completely immune to his charm. She didn't blink when I laid out the basics, a husband with a hero complex, a carefully curated smear campaign, and a manipulative bid for the house I helped build with my bare hands. She took a sip of her coffee, crossed one leg over the other, and said, let's give him the exact kind of problem he can't fix over brunch. We didn't waste time. Cassandra filed for contested divorce with an emergency motion to freeze our shared assets, including the house. See, Mark had made the rookie mistake of assuming I'd roll over before the real paperwork hit. He hadn't counted on me lawyering up before I told him I had. And then came the subpoenas. Cassandra went deep. Every account. Every transaction. She even subpoenaed Mark's cell records from the last 5 years and had a forensic accountant crawl through his credit reports like termites in the walls. Turns out, Mr. Responsible Homeowner had some financial termites of his own, hidden cash apps, private Venmo transfers, and one particularly bold wire to someone listed as LLC event coordinator. That event coordinator turned out to be Tracy with an I. She'd filed an LLC 6 months ago. No website. No business license. Just one very expensive event held at a resort in Charleston the same weekend he told me he was going to a men's leadership retreat. You can't make this stuff up. Cassandra gathered it all. We labeled files like they were case studies, financial misconduct, alienation of affection, character assassination. But she wasn't the only one collecting ammunition. See, while she handled the courtroom strategy, I handled the reputation cleanup. I made a quiet return to the church, not to sit through Mark's sanctimonious psalms, but to have coffee with a few women who'd quietly stopped inviting me to Bible study. I didn't bring binders. I brought calm clarity and a folder with 2 pieces of paper, a screenshot of Mark's affair, and a photo of the updated title deed, showing my name on that house. Suddenly, the murmurs stopped. I didn't need to explain myself. I just needed to be seen. And funny thing about people who gossip, they gossip back in your favor once you show them the receipts. Mark, meanwhile, started cracking. I know because he texted me twice in one night, a long, rambling paragraph about avoiding a public mess and preserving dignity for the kids. Translation: he knew the jig was up, and he was starting to panic. He even suggested mediation again, this time offering to let me keep my car and half the savings. Let me? Baby, you're not in a position to let me do anything. I forwarded the message to Cassandra. She wrote back, "We go to war at dawn." And we did. Because the house was never just about bricks and beams. It was about erasing me. And now? I was the one holding the eraser. I always knew I wanted a daughter. Someone I could raise to be smarter than me, braver than me, less likely to dim her light for a man who doesn't even know how to change a light bulb. But I also knew daughters come with heartbreak. They watch everything. They learn not just from what you say, but from what you swallow. And I swallowed a lot in that marriage. So when she came back to the house that second week, not for dinner, not for pot roast, just to talk, I knew something in her had shifted. She walked in without knocking. I was on the back porch trimming dead leaves off my potted basil. Therapy in plant form. "Can I sit?" she asked. "Always." She settled next to me, legs curled under her like she used to do when she was 15 and worried about a math test. But this time, the equation was different. "I talked to Dad," she said. I didn't respond. She fidgeted. "He said you're trying to take everything." I finally looked up. "And what do you think?" She didn't answer right away. Just stared at the basil like it had the answers she couldn't find in me or him. "He talks like you're vindictive, like you're trying to punish him." I exhaled. Not tired. Resigned. I'm not trying to punish him. I'm trying to stop pretending he's a man he never was. She looked at me then, really looked. And for the first time, I saw it. The realization settling in her face like a slow sunrise. That she'd been listening to a version of me, a filtered one, run through his projection. "I didn't know about the money," she said quietly. "Or Tracy. You weren't supposed to." He made sure of that. She nodded. "He told us it was just an emotional rough patch. That you were being irrational." I smiled. Not bitter. Almost amused. "Your father has always loved rationality when it serves him." She paused. "You know, growing up, you were the one who held everything together. He always made it sound like that was just your role. But I think it was your burden." That one hit. I felt it down to my knees. "I let him talk me out of seeing things," she said. "Even when they were right in front of me. You were a kid. He was your dad." "Yeah, but I'm not a kid now." And then, the thing that cracked me open, she pulled a folded paper from her bag. A printed text. His words to her from 2 weeks ago. "Don't let her drag you down with her. She's unraveling." She handed it to me. Like evidence. Like solidarity. I didn't cry. I nodded. "Thanks," I said. She leaned in. "If you need me at the hearing, I'll be there." And just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. Mark had used my silence to shape her version of me. But now, she was hearing my voice again. And I was ready to make damn sure it echoed. Mark always thought he could control the story. He believed in image, not truth. Perception, not substance. That man could stand in a burning building and convince everyone he was just lighting a candle. But stories unravel. Eventually, reality knocks. And in his case, it came wrapped in a subpoena, hand-delivered during a church deacon's breakfast. From what I heard, the expression on his face was somewhere between a toddler caught drawing on the wall and a televangelist whose mic is still hot. That was the day the documents became public. Cassandra filed everything. All the statements, transfers, and evidence of marital misconduct. She made it all part of the court record. Adultery. Dissipation of marital assets. Alienation of affection. She even filed a separate tort claim against Tracy for interfering in a legal marriage, something North Carolina still honors in civil court if you play it right. And trust me, we played it like a damn cello. The fallout came quick. Mark's men's group at church? Gone. turned on him faster than cheap socks in a dryer. You know how men love loyalty, until loyalty requires facts. The whispers that had once followed me now swirled around him. Oh, she found the bank records. He bought her a car while Nina was paying the electric bill. I heard the other woman works at that co-working space off Franklin, wearing yoga pants like a badge of honor. And bless her little Tracy heart, she tried to clap back online. Posted some soft-focus selfie about new beginnings and protecting your peace. Meanwhile, my lawyer sent her a letter that said, in legal terms, try it. We dare you. The best part, though? My church. The pastor called me, not Mark, to apologize. Said they should have waited to hear both sides. I didn't say much. Just thank you. I've decided to find a new place to worship. Because sometimes redemption means walking away from the whole damn temple. Mark, cornered and exposed, sent me one final olive branch, or what he thought was one. A letter, typed, with his signature like it was a business memo. He offered to settle. I keep the house, you keep the car. No alimony, no court. I laughed so loud, I scared my neighbor's cat off the porch. That wasn't an offer. That was a confession. He finally knew he'd lost control of the narrative. So I made him a counteroffer. Through Cassandra, of course. Professional. Clean. No emotion. I take the house. You get to walk away with your reputation in pieces, or I take that too. His silence was deafening. And when he finally signed the papers, I poured a glass of wine, sat on my porch, and watched the sun hit the front steps just right. My house. My name on the deed. And his fall? Only just beginning. When the judge said the words, it didn't come with fireworks or some triumphant swelling of music. It came in the calm, clipped voice of a woman who had seen 1,000 messy divorces and likely had takeout waiting in chambers. The court grants equitable distribution in favor of the plaintiff. Exclusive possession of the marital residence is awarded to Nina Holloway. Respondent will pay $1,200 per month in rehabilitative alimony for a period of 3 years. And that was that. I didn't smile. Not in the courtroom. But I felt something bloom in my chest that had been dormant for years, like breath. Like weightlessness. Like the sound of my own name said without tension. Mark didn't even look at me. Just stood there beside his lawyer, face stiff like it might crack under the pressure of humility. He thought he'd walk out the same man he walked in. But what he walked out with was less reputation, less power, and a dwindling list of people willing to pretend his version of the truth held water. Outside, Cassandra patted my arm. You got everything you came for. I nodded. No. I got more. Because I didn't just get the house. I got clarity. I got my daughter back. I got to speak my story, not his script. 3 days later, Mark officially moved out. I watched from the upstairs window as he loaded boxes into a rented pickup. I didn't wave. I didn't go down. I didn't offer water or wish him well. That part of me, the part that worried about his comfort even while he was erasing mine, was gone. He paused at the end of the driveway, like maybe he thought I'd come running out for some final confrontation. I didn't. I just stood there, holding the new keys, with a glass of fresh lemonade and a silence he couldn't manipulate. The neighborhood knew, too. You could feel it in the way people looked at him now, cautious, polite, like maybe he was radioactive. He ended up moving into a small apartment complex near the Beltline. Nothing fancy. I only know because a mutual friend mentioned she saw him at the Food Lion buying discount wine and trying not to be noticed. Oh, how the silver fox has tarnished. Meanwhile, I repainted the living room. Sage green, soft but strong. I pulled up the carpet he always said we couldn't afford to replace. Turns out, I could. The hardwood underneath gleamed like a secret waiting to be revealed. I even replaced the front porch swing. It creaks a little. But when I sit on it in the evening with a book and a glass of wine, it's the most peaceful sound in the world. The woman who once whispered herself to sleep now hums while she builds a new life. He wanted the house, but I took it back. And somewhere along the way, I found me. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I disagree. Mine came slow-roasted, seasoned with 30 years of silence, and plated with a side of unapologetic peace. 3 months after the court ruling, my life finally settled. Not back into place, into something better. Something I built without fear, without compromise, without trying to soften myself to be palatable to a man who never appreciated the flavor. The house was mine. The deed, the title, the mortgage, every letter spelled out Nina Holloway, homeowner. No cosigner. No husband. No caveats. I walked barefoot through the hallways I once tiptoed through. Reclaimed each room. I hung art Mark once called busy. Played music he used to mock. Started cooking dinners just for me, spicy, loud, too much garlic. Just the way I like it. The real shift, though? It was inside. I stopped bracing for his voice in the other room. Stopped shrinking when I spoke. Stopped apologizing for breathing too loud in my own space. And the people who'd once given me those tight, pitying smiles at church, now they asked for coffee, for advice, for my story. Funny how quickly folks want to know you once you stop hiding. One afternoon, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Just said, "I saw your ex at the DMV." He looked tired. I didn't reply. What was there to say? He was tired. He'd spent his life trying to choreograph the spotlight and forgot that truth always makes a louder entrance. As for our daughter, she came over every Friday night now. We'd drink wine, rewatch old movies, and laugh about the way she used to think her dad was the organized one. My son, too, eventually reached out. Slowly, cautiously, and I welcomed him not because I forgot what he did, but because I knew what it cost to undo what Mark planted in him. Forgiveness isn't the same as amnesia. I remembered everything, but memory no longer controlled me. I kept a box in the hall closet marked before. Inside, printouts, documents, the red accordion folder, the letter Mark tried to pass off as closure. I didn't need them anymore, but I kept them. Not for vengeance. For reference. So, if I ever doubted my worth again, I could look back and say, that woman didn't just survive, she redefined the battlefield. I ended the story not with a bang, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a slow walk to my front porch swing, a glass of iced tea in my hand, and a new kind of silence. The peaceful kind. The kind that comes when you've finally learned that you don't need a man's approval, a pastor's blessing, or a family's permission to claim what's yours. Mark wanted the house, but I took the whole foundation. And I sleep like a baby, because when you finally stop shrinking, the world shifts to make room.